And we are live for an April Fool's Day episode.
Yes, April Fools.
April Fool's, he's not going anywhere.
Oh, we had to do that. It was a perfect day, perfect time for it. So,
You know when you got a crazy schedule and then you land something on a day that works and it's April Fool's Day, you gotta do something.
I had so many stories I wanted to say, like different ways of saying it, but I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You know what I'm
No, oh
saying?
yeah. Any kind of prank like that, it only escalates how funny it is when it gets more specifically directed, but you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings either, right?
Right,
Like, because
right.
you could have picked anyone. It's Walt Disney, whoever.
Exactly. Can they get hurt feelings?
Yeah, I think we did a good job. I think we
So
did.
thank you for letting me do that on your podcast.
Hey
That
man.
was awesome.
I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, the one thing that has stayed the same with me in every job that I've done, every time in my life, is fucking with people. You know what I mean? Where,
Yeah.
Somebody will laugh and then somebody will go, why would you do that? And you go, that person laughed. And that is exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, to make people laugh and smile. I get people all the time saying, Rick, I don't know how to believe you or not to believe you, or it's like, hey, it's the way that's who I am. So,
Well, I told you about the whiskey, the Wayne Gretzky, and you were like, oh, the base football player. What? I don't remember what you said,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
had me. You had me so hard. And I was just like, you son of a bitch. Yeah. Michael
Yeah,
Jordan, the tennis player. Yeah.
right. Yeah, people, a lot of the new generation, people don't know who Wayne Gretzky is. He was like one of the best
That's
players.
true. That's
You go
true.
way, way back. When I went to Sherwin-Williams Expo in Florida, I ran into Dr. J. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and I got a picture of him, Dr. J. People are like, who's that guy? It's like he's the one that Michael Jordan, watch. He's the one. He's
Yeah.
the best of
Yeah.
the best. I remember growing up as a kid, like Dr. J. Hook shot, right?
Yeah.
Who's that?
That's the GOAT's GOAT.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. 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 That's
So
like you. That's like you. Nobody knows all
no
the
one knows who I
behind the
am.
scenes shit.
You know,
Yeah. All right.
I
So
see stuff.
we're going
Yeah,
to
I
talk
see.
about mud pumps.
Yeah, I want to focus on mud pumps.
And this is what I think about when I hear mud pump. And that's not what we're going to talk about today.
No, and
No.
they work just fine. And so, I've had some sent to me through the years. I think I got 3 mud pumps in my shed that I don't use. I used one and I tried getting up higher a long time ago, just so I have to bend over. I just, one of the reasons why I kind of steered away from bazookas from the beginning and banjos was I feel that they would leave dry spots. And there's an issue with, because I had to fix those through the
Right.
years first. Like, so I don't trust the bazooka, I don't trust the banjo. And then later on in life, realizing it's not the tool, it's the operator. It's not the operator, it's the tool that does it
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point for the banjo. Let me get this straight, the banjo. So that's why I created that little hump in the banjo so it would roll the mud. So the bazooka, you have to dilute it down so much
Yeah. It
to
has to
get
be
the
like
run right.
soup. Yeah.
So you really have to know how to run it, right? You really do, and not anybody can just grab a bazooka and start running off with it.
Well, like when you prime the bazooka, you run it up the wall that little bit to tighten the plunger. That refeeds that mud because it'll all start to settle back down. But if you're not running it as wet as you need to be running it, you don't really come into that as much, but it's very difficult to run. So that's why, you'll have all these different perspectives of people on the tools. But unless you are like running 10,000 board feet a week, you don't know how to run with the tools. You know how to
Right.
use them, but
Well,
there's a big difference. Yeah,
so with the bazooka, it's like nonstop. You're going. You're not
that's
taking
right.
a break. You're not setting it against the wall somewhere. You're just going. And
Yeah,
once you take that break, then you could have a potential issue, right?
yeah,
So I was like, I kind of stayed away from those things. And then you had to have a pump, which a pump is like 300 to 400, maybe $500 nowadays. I don't know,
yeah.
but it's really expensive. So when I first started off, it's just me. So when I first started off, I bought a compound tube, and it was like, well, how am I going to fill up my tools with I have a compound tube. That's what I'm going to use. And that's what I started using. I got hurt in 2012 where I couldn't use my compound tube. I couldn't pull.
Okay.
compound tube. So it's like, I have to keep working. I'm doing a brand new house, a 3-story house. What am I going to do? And so my buddy was a plumber. And so that's when PEX basically started coming out, 2011, 2012. Started getting a little popular with the plumbers. And
Yeah, huge
I,
innovation.
yeah, I was like, hey, you got PEX. PEX doesn't corrode the mud.
Yep.
So I started using PEX. And so I started using my mud pump. And so I only used it on big jobs where I needed it.
Hmm.
Back then, I was super strong, right? I'm
Yeah.
still strong now, but running a mud tube, and I'm going to show that process, is easy to do, but it will in time hurt your body.
Right.
In time, it really will. So, so I had to make a tool that pumped my mud, and I didn't want to bend over and pump my mud. And so I made this mud pump. I'm going to show you in a second here.
Hmm.
But if that's what you do, and you're happy with your mud pump that you work, that's great. And it works. It works for a lot of people. It just wouldn't work for me.
Yeah.
Something else it's something I got to carry around. I think they made those plugs. I think it was a great idea for those plugs for that, right?
Well, like that, it just contains the mud at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I need to
Yeah.
clean it. I think the worst thing about it for me is that you can't seal the top. It's not contained. And I'm a big believer of containing and sealing my mud. I don't put my mud back into the bucket. I
Yeah.
don't, it's worked.
Yeah. I
It's
throw it out.
used.
Yeah.
So that's got to go. So when I'm working, all the mud that I pull out of a tool or pull on my hawk or pan or wherever I'm using, because I don't care if it's a pan or a hawk, we should know how to use both tools.
Yeah.
But that mud goes on the wall. It stays there. It doesn't come back up. You don't pull off your knives or off your tools and it goes back in the bucket. That's
No.
how I. So that's the thing with that pump. You can't seal it very well, and
Hmm.
so it starts getting harder on the top. That mud has to eventually get into the other mud,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it
When
just
you
sits.
put the next back on top, that's because typically if you've got different buckets, I pick a bucket and then pour the other buckets into it.
Right.
Right. But
Yep.
yeah, so you're going to have that kind of hardened up crust in the
To
middle, and eventually it's going to come through the pump, or it's going
me,
to
it's
clog up the pump.
almost like you need like a hairnet bag. It goes over the whole
Yeah.
thing and seals it off somehow. But and when summer comes, or if you're even in the wintertime, got heaters blowing, it's going to dry that top up first,
Hmm.
so I don't like it. So I'm going to show you this pump. All right.
Yeah, let's see it. Yeah.
A lot of people ask me about it and like, how do you do it? So can you see it from here?
Yeah, just like that is perfect.
I can get closer.
Yeah, you know what? If you get a little bit closer and we can just kind of pan it down that little bit more, but that's probably perfect actually.
Right here. All right. So if you watch my videos, I've changed this so many times through the years. And
Hmm.
so when I first came up with this idea, I had to fill my compound tube up. So basically I came on this bottom. It's a 3/4 inch line. And I came out with a PEX line. And at the time, compound tubes only had a small 3/8 hole. So the 1/2 inch PEX fit perfect right inside it.
Right.
I was filling the compound tube up. The only issue was I had to lay it down and I had to stop. So basically, when the handle hit the wall, I knew it was full, turn it off.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, it was like, how am I going to keep this thing full all the time when it's up high?
Hmm.
Which was my next problem. But because I had to lift it up because I was injured and I had to have surgery. I was hurt, so I had to find a way to make this all work. So I had to lift this thing up in the air to get mud out. The second tool I made was this, and I still have it. And this is a 3/4 inch PEX, and I didn't have to heat this one up. I used an elbow on this that bends it.
Yeah, it looks like an aquarium exhaust bend.
Well,
That's funny.
this is made for blue for cold line. So they had blue, white, and or clear
Red.
and red.
Yeah.
And so this was a cold line. So basically, this is at a hardware store, not fitting for your hoses.
Yeah.
And when you expand it with the PEX expander, it locks back onto it super, super tight. It does not leak. And so this is 2012 right here. And this section here, I just take at this
Fucking
time
11 years ago. Yeah.
took a torch and I heated it up, squeezed it down, dipped it in water, and it holds the position. if I was to heat this back up, it's going to go back into its home position, be round again, like it wasn't
wild.
even. But so this one's really great, because the travel time when you're running a mud, this is a mud sprayer, by the way, Graco mud sprayer, and so the travel of the mud is not very much, so it's fast. It's going to fill really fast, and it's lower. It was made to set this way. You put your tools underneath it, your nail spotter or your boxes or whatever, and it fills up really, really fast. But I had to lift it up in the air, right? And that's what I did back then in 2012. This I got in 2010, and a lot of people like texture at the time. So I was like, I don't like those hoppers. They got to fill up and try to balance it and
carry it around. Yeah.
And so I bought this thing here. I think it'd be great for spraying mud. And there's no air compressor with this, right? That's what's nice about it. It's lightweight. There's no air compressor. You could buy a really nice air compressor, and you could you could spray mud just as nice as a $5,000 sprayer.
Right.
It depends on your air compressor, right? So that's what I did back in 2000.
So then, how does this work? It's just like a pump, like it is just an in and out pump, like an air pump, but for mud. Yeah. I see. I've
torn this thing apart, and I know how it works. So this is not like a airless sprayer. It's got a pipe, kind of like this rubber pipe here, and it goes like this inside.
Yeah.
And it pulls the mud, keeps pulling the mud, and it shoots it out. So the idea is this, with this fitting here, is to keep it that distant, that diameter inside. No reducers. There's no reducer. So it stays that way. I'm trying to keep it as short as possible for me, for speed. And so the speed of this right now, the way it works, is very important on the mud consistency. Obviously, thicker mud is going to be harder to pump out.
Of course.
Right. So I made a couple of changes through the years, and one of them was, when I change over, I call it a changeover from my tube to my boxes, or if you're bazooka to your boxes. There's different fittings. So it's a changeover. Just like a regular pump, you got to change that fitting over.
Of course.
It's a changeover. So I think Wolfgang K&M made one with two little fittings with the valve that you could keep it there, and they don't make it anymore. But it's really
and just have a cut off on one side or the other, I guess.
It's a regular ball valve that changes it over, which is really nice,
Yeah, that'd be dope.
So that gave me an idea for this. So I did that. I put a fitting on the bottom for my tube, and then on the other side was my filler, and I had a valve. But the corrosion and the wear of it, because the mud is really, it's really harsh, right? So it's like, it's not working. My valves are breaking. So how do I simplify it, right? So when I came up with this idea, keeping it short and using the cam block system, which is the same stuff I use for my compound tubes, but smaller, right? So this part here, which is the female part of it, then this is the male thread, but I hollowed this out with a heating torch. So if you could feel this, it's a ball. So my tube snaps onto that. So there's nothing to change over. It's there. And then when I'm not using it, I just cap it off, right? So,
and that cam lock system, I think, is the best, because when it locks, it pulls in.
Yes.
Right.
And then the gasket is like, it's like a quarter-inch gasket.
Yeah. Like, to lock that, you are squeezing the gasket. You're not just putting them together. I think it's the best.
Yeah, it really is. And this is my box filler. So I made this back in 2009, and I'm going to show you the compound tube. If I was to take this off, I could put this on my compound tube. This is just something you find in a hardware store for plumbing. It's copper, so it can't corrode. And everything is used with PEX. So when I use PEX, there's no ring on this, right? So there's a ring on this one because I want this super tight, but there's no ring on this, so I can actually turn it. And I can turn this in different positions and rotate it up. So depending how you like it.
Right.
So some people like to fill their boxes this way, and this is facing this way. You can do it that way. It's whatever you want to do.
But for you to pull that 90 out of there would be almost impossible, though, because it's a pressure fit. Is that
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a hard 90, so you can't
Yeah,
move it.
but I mean, where that's attached to the pecs, you've opened the pecs, put it in, and then let the pecs close itself. So
Yes,
so it's not going anywhere, but you can turn it, but not pull it out. That's fucking genius.
it's awesome. There's a ring on it and it keeps it sealed. Like this part right here is a ring.
I see that. I see that now.
So,
Yeah.
so what I do, and the secret to this is when I use my PEX expander, I change the PEX expander when I'm running it. So this is a 3/4 with 1-inch fitting. So what I do is I'll run my 3/4 and I expand it, and then I'll switch my gun over to a 1-inch and throw it in there, and then expand that to 1-inch, and then lock it on.
Right.
And then I don't need the extra pieces and stuff on it. All right. So again, so now if I want to run my boxes, basically it just sits on here like this, right? In any position I want, I can lock it on.
Click.
I can rotate it or however I want it, to fill up my boxes.
Right.
And the best thing about this system is that I don't need to lift my mud up. This is on the floor. So everything's on the floor, and I just dump the mud in from the floor. One of the hardest things I had to figure out was this part right down here. And because the way this pump works in the oval shape like this, it's pumping, this is shaking. So like the first ones I made were a hard fit on there, and it would just sometimes it would just break the fittings,
right,
because it's shaking. So
rattle.
I did this hose, flex hose.
Is it like a rubber hose?
Yeah, it's a rubber hose with the strings in it.
That makes sense.
So super strong. And so yeah, that's the mud pump, and it works really well. I made this one recently, so if I'm on my stilts, this one can snap on, and I can don't have to bend over, right? So it goes up really high, same kind of fitting on it. So it's really nice. It's like carrying a bucket around. It's not nothing heavier than a bucket.
Yeah.
To move it around. So I stand on the top. I made a nest for my. This is how I came up with my bucket nest for my applicator. Was I wanted something to contain my mud.
Is that stainless? Is that all bent stainless?
It's all stainless steel. I made this out of a mud pan.
Yeah.
So that's what gave me the idea for how am I going to make my applicator mud pan on a bucket.
Yeah.
And so I used to use a piece of wood on top of this. And so I worked for Advanced Equipment.
Oh, this is much nicer. Yeah.
Stainless steel, it's easy to clean. And so I made this nest. I resistant welded it on here. So resistant welding is basically it's just like two fittings like burning it together.
Yeah, right? They're making two things one.
Right.
So what happens there? It just superheats it, it melts together, and then you're done. It's like a tack. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it ain't gonna ever come off. So when I put this on here to hold my pan, to collect my mud, basically, which gave me the option of putting my mud pan, applicator pan, in the nest where I'm pumping the mud into it and running it through. Right. So some of the complaints people would say with this applicator pan is like, oh, I'm doing 300 corner bead. I don't want that tool. It's like, for me, I'm pumping mud in when I need it. It's endless. You gotta think about things like that, right? Yes, this thing is sitting on there, basically. And then this thing turns down, and it faces inside this pan here. Just pumps mud in as I need it. Through the years, I had like the remote control. I always called it remote control.
Jesus.
And it works really well. It's like a Christmas tree switch,
Yeah.
Snap it onto your pants. The problem with that is when the batteries start to go bad, if you can't stop the mud, you're in trouble.
Then it's going forever.
Yeah. So that's why I made the hard switch. But I can just I can screw it up to the wall up high or put it somewhere where I could turn it on and off.
Yeah, and it's a light switch. I've seen that, right? Where you just screw it at a comfortable level to turn it on and off. This whole thing is about body comfort, and I really like it.
So what I've learned through this is like sometimes I put them together, and so I'll use my remote control and the other switch. So I could be pumping my mud. I can start flushing, and I know when it's full. I just turn it off, and then like when I fill up my big boxes, and I just know the timing. So people say, "Oh, it's slower." It's like, well, I'm doing something else while this is doing. It's like a robot on the job.
Yeah, well, it literally is. You just don't have it thinking. You're just thinking for it, which is probably the best way to have robots.
So every time I've improved it, I've changed it each time. And on this job here, every job, I like to say, every job I come up with a tool on
Yeah,
every job, which
that's
is kind of
insane.
crazy. But this part right here, can you see it?
No, it looks like a valve.
Yeah. So this is basically a
Oh, it's
garden
a
hose
side shoot
fitting,
off. Okay.
and this is what's down low where it's connected to. So sometimes I'm spraying mud. Like this job, I had to spray and hook up my hose to it, right? So this is made so I can put my hose for spraying mud. And so basically, I had two fittings. And then I realized, well,
So
I
then
could
you
put,
would just cap the top.
yeah, put a
I
cap on the top.
see.
Of
I
course,
see.
if I was to make another one now, I wouldn't need this because I can make a fitting a 90 here that snaps on.
Right.
But this is always with me. So there's advantage and disadvantage. You know, I don't have to carry nothing around with me. It's always there.
Yeah.
Right. But I could make it simpler.
I think that's
So
fucking hilarious that you're sitting here with like this super highly crazy efficient thing and you're like, you know what? I could make this even better if I just that must be how your brain works.
it's
And it's
always
just a
something.
perpetual, I could make everything better all the time.
I worked with Marshalltown on their mud sprayer years ago, and I have it in my shed. It's a big one. You know, it's got an inch
Oh
of
shit.
hose on it, and you put a ball through it to clean it out and everything. It's like the big Graco ones. And so I'm gonna tear that apart this year. I'm gonna make a new
Nice.
pump. I think, you know, if I was in your position, like you hire people to come in to do mud drop jobs on big jobs, like
Mm-hmm.
union people and stuff, I could design a pump that could fill several banjos, bazookas,
Yeah.
whatever you wanted on one pump with a huge hopper. There's
Yeah. Like
one
50
guy's
gallon drum of
yeah, one
yeah.
guy's just always mixing. That's all he's doing. Multiple things. I know I could, but yeah, that's that mud pump, and I use it on every job now. It's just so nice, and I can leave mud in it, take it with me to
Because
the
it's
next
sealed.
job, just like a
Yeah.
bucket. Yeah. What I do like when I'm working on a job is I use bags. I use boxes, right? The box have a bag in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
the bag, I always save my bags.
Yeah. Put
I
it
don't
back in
just
the
throw them in.
box and now it's waterproof box.
I'll take the bag and I'll put it over the top like a seal, and then I push my lid on top,
Yeah.
and it seals it for weeks if you wanted to.
Well,
And it starts to,
it'll stay as long as it would have stayed in the box.
yep.
So yeah, that's the seal still.
So it works really, really well. I can't be happier with it. I have two of these.
Well,
I get companies asking me, can I have the other one? Because they don't make them anymore.
yeah, you tell them the other one's mine if you're giving it away.
So the story is like, I think it's 2018 when I went to the Sherwin-Williams Expo in Florida, is where I met Graco
Oh,
people.
okay. Yeah.
And I went and said, who's the engineer? Who's the main guy here? If you go to an expo, or the Sherwin-Williams Expo, they have 50, 75 people working in their booth. It's huge.
Wow.
They got microphones going, spray booths going.
Hmm.
It's just
That's how it
huge.
should be. That's how it should be.
Yeah, put it
Yeah.
in your hand and you get to use them and stuff. They have a really good. They have the best, basically the best expos. So they put a lot of money into it. Could you imagine the money they put into that expo?
Well, that's the thing. It's
And they probably had 50,000 just in their booth, you know. So I talked to the engineer there, and I said, you know, where is this pump at?
mhm.
Like, why don't you have it anymore? And the guy's like, well, we don't make them anymore. We don't need them anymore.
Yeah, we
We have
got
these
all
guys.
this other shit. Yeah.
I was like, I tell you, you know, this guy's a big German muscle guy.
Yeah.
Like
They're enormous, probably.
yeah, he'd rip your head off. It's a big guy. And so I said, you guys need this back. I said, I'll tell you how I pump my mud. I said, out of all the other companies out there, Titan and these other companies, they don't have mud pumps. You're the only company that sprays mud,
Hmm.
besides Marshalltown. I said, you need something that helps the drywall community pump mud. And now they have their Graco.
Nice.
So it's part of that, talking to them. And when I was talking to them, next thing you know, I have like 20 people of these Graco people shirts, all blue around me.
Yep.
And it's like, what? I felt uncomfortable at that point. It's like,
They're
this
like,
is not,
do we kill
yeah,
this guy? Do we try and buy his thing? What do we do? What's gonna happen here?
exactly. But it's good to see, like, it's good to see them do that. You know, I know I was part of it. I don't get nothing out of it,
Eh,
but I pushed it, pushed it for him, But,
for me, just being in that conversation and being able to have that story to tell would have been enough for me to like like that. So that was technically the birth of the Graco pump.
right.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
This is what's always so shocking, that your name doesn't come up as much as it does, because you've just been a part of like everything, is what it sounds like. You know what I mean? Here and there, ideas, discussions, just testing things, innovating things. It's just shocking.
yeah,
But
you could hold it all in. I could not say anything to all these people. And it's like, I think it's best to do it,
mm,
and some people get mad at me for like sharing ideas and stuff. It's like, well, to me, it's going to help somebody else out. Like some of the, the patches and my processes and how I do my job, and sharing them
yeah.
and seeing other people do it it's like, hey, that's awesome. Like when I see the K&M with the Nicor, and people are switching it now more now, like
I'm
that's the
seeing
way
that.
that's the way it's made for it. And why did you take me so long to catch on?
Mhm.
So I wish some of my videos that were on the K&M page would never got deleted, but they got deleted. And
Yeah.
that was the beginning. It shows how it all works. And so for me to get it
Well,
back out there again is really hard to do.
yeah, I mean, like, how long have we even been talking? But like 2 or 3 months ago, I feel like you were showing me everything's got its own handle, and they're off and on and off and on all so quickly. They sit in the water, and now you're just kind of starting to see people swapping, like people they catches on, but like this is something you'd been doing for what, like 6 months?
Um,
Probably longer than that.
since 2009.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before level 5 picked you up, right?
Yeah, because I used the Purdy adapters. And I'll show you those.
Right.
But everything was a Purdy adapters. All my tools fit on that. And then it's like, hey, let's just make it so everybody can. Not everybody can have those adapters, but if I work with a company and share that idea, and it worked
Mhm.
out really well, because Wolfgang showed me his Nicor, because all it was the Nicor plastic flusher
Mhm.
and a handle, that little handle thing. And
Okay.
that's all Nicor was, until I stepped in and said, hey, we needed to put it on. We're drywallers, we don't carry broomsticks around, right? We need to
Not
put it onto our
not the good
drywall.
ones.
So that's really this mud pump. And I want to talk about the compound tubes and the other
Yeah.
way, probably the next.
I was going to say we got about 9 minutes left on this one.
Is there any
So
questions you have on this? Do you want to know anything on this?
okay, so turn it again a little bit there, so I can see the whole thing. But how did this thing work properly? Like, how was this meant to work?
So this is meant for this hose.
Yeah.
This is basically a garden hose. And I have two of these. This is where I got the other bracket for down here, my other
Okay.
one. So I use that same hose, and it uses a spring as a spring for when it's shaking. But it's just a garden hose, right?
But so where that mud is coming out of this, that's never changed. You've just, where it's going has changed, and then it would just be like a sprayer for mud.
It's the consistency. So like when you spray through this hose, it's almost like gravy mud.
Holy shit. Okay.
So and you're misting. So what this pump does for me that the Graco one doesn't do is it sprays mud. So I can do level 5 if I want to do. I'm a
Right.
big fiberfuse user with the big rolls, and I can spray the wall and then put the fiberfuse on, and then spray it again, and you're done.
Right.
So I don't roll my mud. I'd rather spray it. If you're doing a plaster job and you have the loose plaster and you want to fix it, if you're spraying the mud, you can penetrate those holes and just not disturb it. If you're
Right.
rolling it, it's like a suction cup. You can pull it. So you don't really want to touch it at the time. when you put the fiber fuse on there, it sucks in tight, it locks in tight,
Right.
especially when you use all-purpose mud. If you're using a hot mud, it's not going to suck in tight.
I'm starting to find that where I liked using the 90 on it, but it doesn't suck it in tight. You really have to get all of it off of it, or it's gonna be a bulge.
Yeah, you got it. I know. I think it's very important to use
Mhm.
all-purpose mud with fiber fuse, and just for the, when they do their testing, when they say it's stronger than paper tape, it is with all-purpose mud.
Right.
It might only be 50% stronger with. I don't know. I've asked for the results and how they do their testing and stuff. I don't get much support from fiber
It's a little
fuse.
fucking forward though when you're like, gonna need to see all your lab results for these, and they're like, absolutely not.
Yeah. So when you're spraying this, this is made for spraying. It just gives you the option. So like when I started this job here, I didn't really use it for my tape coat,
Mhm.
because with my other station, I'll show you that a little bit. I don't really need to pump mud into my banjo. I really don't need
Right.
to.
Right.
But when I'm doing my boxing, whatever I'm boxing, the changeover is really nothing because then I go right from that to my sprayer. So everything's here.
Right.
And then when you put water in it and you spray it through and it's clean. There isn't much to clean, But
Right.
I also have this hose here. This is I always have this with me. This is like a marine hose. It's really, really soft.
Yeah.
But I can hook this up to my sprayer with water, and I can clean
Spray
my
your
tools
tools
with
off.
it, or spray it in the hopper. So
So is this thing available? Like, are you selling this?
No, you can't. They don't make it anymore. That's why I talk about Graco. It's like you're missing out.
Yeah, you got to figure
And
this shit
so
out.
missing out on something big. And I've talked to Marshalltown. I've talked to other companies. Like I want to make, because I think I know what we need for this to make it better. And
Yeah, let's fucking do it.
I want to make another one. I want to make one. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna tear my Marshalltown one apart.
And
I've
see if you
talked
can
to.
figure out how to do it.
There is one company that really wants. It's active with me that really wants to do something. So,
Yeah.
other companies haven't really said much. So I'm gonna go with that one company that wants to.
This
But
is my favorite part, because some people, like, if their comments are, well, he didn't invent whatever, and you're like, okay, that's fine. You're here with a working one for you that works and it's awesome, but nobody else can have one, and you're gonna go tear apart a different fucking pump now and refigure it all out, and just to make sure that we can have it if we want it. I think
right.
that's fucking crazy, man, but I love it.
There's other guys out there that have this search on eBay
Yeah.
that have something similar to it. Like theirs is a little different on how the one guy that has one in my group, he has it in a tote with
Yeah. Okay.
wheels,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's great.
Same
I
purpose.
love seeing that. It's like, hey, it's not like yours. Like you're gonna want to do it the way you want to do it,
Yeah.
right? But I'm gonna tell you one thing: you're gonna change it over and over
100
and over.
times probably. Yeah.
He's changed it 3 times already, as I told you. That's what you want to get it to how you like it, right? And that's what's nice about this, because I can make this and I can change it tomorrow and make it totally different on how I want to make it work, right? But again, the idea of this, because it's a smaller pump, is you can't have any kind of reducing. So if you look inside this, in any of these threads I got, I'm using 1 inch fittings for a 3/4 inch
Yeah.
hose. So everything is staying big. So
Yeah.
it's pushing the mud easier. So shorter distance as you can.
Well, and you're raising pressure when you lower it. Like when you're going from 3/4 to whatever half inch or whatever the hell it is, you're raising the pressure at that point, are you not?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's no good. You got to keep it smooth but
Yeah.
fast. Okay,
Yes.
that's a good time to take a break here. I think we got 3 minutes left. We'll be right back. April Fool's Day.